Hey guys, Harrison here, and the cameras in Google's Pixel line of phones have been at the forefront of mobile photography since they were first released, but just how well do they stack up to the Sony RX100 Mark V, Sony's premium compact camera with some pretty impressive specs of its own. While the RX100 has the advantage of being a dedicated camera in itself with some much more advanced hardware, the Pixel 2 has all of Google's software goodness behind it, helping it to produce some pretty stunning shots of its own. So which camera comes out on top? Let's jump in and find out. Let me just say that I know the Pixel 3's out, but the difference between the back camera between the Pixel 2 and the Pixel 3 is marginal to say the least. So I think it's still pretty fair to compare the Pixel 2 to the RX100 Mark V in 2019. So I'm going to be looking at these two cameras across four main categories. We've got overall image quality, dynamic range, low light performance, as well as video. So let's start with the overall image quality of these two cameras. So the RX100 V is rocking a 20 megapixel 1-inch sensor, which is both larger and a higher resolution than the 12 megapixel sensor you'll find in the Pixel 2. Honestly though, in good lighting, if you're just quickly glancing at the shots, you would be hard pressed to tell the difference between the two cameras. Both cameras produce sharp images with lots of details in the photos. Zooming right into some of the shots, I would have to hand it to the RX100 Mark V just for being able to resolve some of that finer detail, but zooming out to 100% and just comparing the two shots, you would be hard pressed to notice a difference in sharpness and quality between the two photos. In fact, I reckon straight out of the camera, I almost prefer the shots from the Pixel 2. The automatic post-processing actually looks pretty good. It adds a bit of vibrance, a little bit of clarity, obviously a bit of sharpening as well, and those are all things I'd probably do anyway, and it does just save me a bit of time doing it on my Pixel 2 automatically versus having to take shots from my RX100 V into post and doing it there manually myself. One thing the Pixel 2 can't compete with though is the zoom. The RX100 Mark V I've got here has a 24-70 zoom lens on it, meaning you can zoom in and out with no loss of quality, whereas on my Pixel 2 it's only got a fixed 27mm lens on it, meaning that to zoom in and out you're either going to have to use your legs or crop into the image, which will reduce its quality. This zoom lens on the RX100 Mark V is definitely one of its biggest advantages over the Pixel 2 and really positions it as just more of that complete package, that complete camera, which you would hope for considering the RX100 Mark V can only function as a camera and actually costs a bit more than the Pixel 2. The larger sensor on the RX100 V also does allow it to create a bit more depth of field than you can get on the Pixel 2. However, the Pixel 2's portrait mode can produce some pretty incredible results of its own. And in some cases, I would even say that it can produce a better result than the RX100 Mark V, as it is able to blur things out more in software than what the RX100 is limited to with its hardware. And another area that I think the Pixel 2 can actually beat out the RX100 Mark V in sometimes is in dynamic range. So let's get into that now. Now, while the RX100 Mark V does benefit from that much larger sensor than the Pixel 2, allowing it to gather a lot more data, the Pixel 2 does benefit from Google's HDR+ software as well. As the name suggests, with HDR+ turned on, the Pixel 2 will automatically take shots as HDR shots, meaning it'll be able to maximize the dynamic range in the shot, and in some cases I would say it beats out the RX100 Mark V in dynamic range. Straight out of the camera, the differences are pretty obvious, but even after editing the shots from my RX100 Mark V in Lightroom or Photoshop and trying to, raise the shadows, reduce the highlights, I still feel like the Pixel 2 beats it out with just having much more dynamic range in its shots, not to mention the fact that it does it automatically for you as well. Now, low light shooting is somewhere where you might expect the RX100 V to steam ahead of the Pixel 2 with its larger sensor, but I wouldn't be so sure. Both lenses open up to f1.8, letting lots of light in, but the larger camera sensor on the RX100 Mark V does provide a greater area for that light to hit, allowing it to capture more light and more information like we said earlier. Just recently though, the Pixel 2 got a new trick up its sleeve, something called night sight. Now, I've made a whole video on night sight already, so I encourage you to check it out if you want to learn a bit more, but essentially it allows the Pixel 2 to take a whole lot of low light shots and then stitch them all together to create a usable shot in very, very dark conditions. I stuck the RX100 V and the Pixel 2 on tripods at night and just took some photos of my backyard, and you can see that the RX100 does have the advantage of being able to just hold the shutter open as long as it needs to, like I'm talking 5 or 10 second exposures and gather a whole lot more light, whereas night sight on the Pixel 2 doesn't quite get up to that level, and so you can see that the photos from my Pixel 2 are a lot noisier than the ones from my RX100 V. The crazy thing about night sight though on the Pixel 2 is that it doesn't need to be on a tripod at all, so I took both of these cameras off the tripod and took some more shots with them. You can see the shots from the RX100 Mark V have gotten a lot darker because even with stabilization turned turned on, I can't hold a 10-second long exposure. So I did have to raise up the shutter speed, which means that not enough light can pass in to produce very good images at all, versus on the Pixel 2, which can correct my movements and actually produce a usable looking image. Obviously still pretty ugly, but night and day compared to the shot from the RX100 Mark V. Now the last category we're going to be comparing across is in video. Both cameras can shoot 4K at 30 FPS, although the RX100 Mark V can only handle it for 4 or 5 minutes before it overheats. Comparing the video from both of these side by side though, I do think it is pretty clear that the Pixel 2 just cannot compete with the video out of the RX100 V. The video from the RX100 just looks much cleaner, much more detailed and less processed than that of the Pixel 2. Neither are bad though, but I do think that this is one area where the RX100 definitely has a clear advantage over the Pixel 2. Both cameras also shoot slow motion, with the Pixel 2 going up to 240 FPS and the RX100 V going up to a crazy 960 FPS. That's 4 times slower than the 240p you're getting on the Pixel 2, and it really shows with some crazy slow motion shots able to be captured on the RX100 V. Both cameras also have really great video autofocus, using face detection to quickly snap on to the subject. So overall, the Pixel 2 can definitely compete with and even beat out the RX100 Mark V in a very few select situations, but overall these are two very different cameras for two very different scenarios. While the Pixel 2 is a phone with an amazing camera and software paired up with it, the RX100 Mark V is a standalone, very fully featured pocket-sized camera. Still, it is extremely interesting and very exciting to see how the software in the Pixel 2 can allow it to match and even beat out shots from the RX100 Mark V in some situations. More than that though, I think it's going to be very exciting in the next few years as we see more and more software getting incorporated into cameras like the RX100s. Like, can you imagine HDR Plus and Night Sight packed into that RX100 Mark V? Now that would be something. That just about wraps up this video though. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, then you can consider checking out my videos on Night Sight on the Pixel 2, as well as my unboxing on the RX100 Mark V. And also don't forget to leave a like and subscribe down below. If you've got any questions, don't forget to leave those in the comment section. Apart from that though, thanks for watching and I'll catch ya in the next video.